first presentation today also is a very unique approach. The first presentation will be the musical history, the Star-Spangled Banner, and the drinking song upon which it was based by Michele Miner. In a previous symposium, we had the idea that why not have a performance of a War of 1812 era song, which is the Star-Spangled Banner. We thought it was a neat introduction. When we had that, one of the lecturers just happened to offhandedly mention, oh, did you know that that was based on a drinking song? And I did not know that. And I think a lot of people didn't. And as you might know, in South Louisiana, we kind of like our drinking. And so to combine the culture of South Louisiana with the history, that's the best the symposium can do. And so I think we've introduced, or hopefully today we'll see we've introduced a new genre of Battle of New Orleans history, which is a combination of musical performance and academic history all in one. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Our lecturer, Michele Miner, is of course very integral to the Battle of New Orleans Historical Symposium, as well as the Nunez History Lecture Series, has been with the symposium from the beginning, handles all the operations, and is also doing the Battle of New Orleans Historical Tour this year. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Michele Miner.
Thank you, Curtis. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to see you all here for this. I wanted to tell you about my research first for this project. It was very interesting. I learned a lot about a song that I've been always very, very proud to be able to sing. I consider it an honor to sing at our graduation for Nunez Community College every year, and when other people ask me for ceremonies, I do it there. But there was a lot about this song that I did not understand. And I am very proud this morning to get that across to you all. First off, I'd like to tell you about what an anthem is. And I don't have a clicker, Curtis. Do you want to man the... There's always a glitch, but that's okay. I'll go ahead and tell you about what an anthem is. It's meant to be a rousing or uplifting song that's identified with a cause or a particular group or body. And of course, that's what our national anthem is. England actually adopted the first anthem of anthems, if you will, when they, in the mid-1700s, made God Save Our King the national anthem of England. It was an informal yet forceful adoption of the official song, and it kind of prompted all of the other nations to follow suit. Our popular anthems that we know, that most of us are familiar with, belong to our military. We're all pretty much familiar with the Marines hymn, and Anchors Aweigh, and the Army Goes Rolling Along, and the U.S. Air Force song. Those are things that we equate with that word, anthem. The Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem, is considered to be one of the most controversial musical compositions in the United States history. And I never dreamed there was so much controversy behind it until I started researching this. It was penned in wartime, under unbelievably harrowing conditions, by Francis Scott Key. And he was on a sloop with a couple of other gentlemen under guard in wartime. Just unbelievable when he did this. John Stuart Skinner was one of the men that were present with him, and I'll get a little bit into him a little bit later. In its original form, it was a poem. It contained 4 stanzas, and most Americans don't realize that the other 3 exist because we've always heard just that one stanza that's sung all the time. Debate has ensued about whether or not Key meant it just to remain a poem, or if he had a particular tune in mind when he wrote it. That's never actually been solved. It was later put to the popular drinking song, which was a very commonplace practice before our current day copyright laws. The song that was chosen was the Anacreontic song. It was, or it's also called To Anacreon in Heaven, okay? It was an anthem of the Anacreontic Society in England in 1775, and it was called a bawdy, boozy ballad of a convivial gentleman's club. Kind of comical. The club met at a local tavern. They would dine, they would then open a more pleasant drinking atmosphere with the introduction of this song. It was meant to celebrate wine, women, and song. And the society is named after and honors the Greek poet Anacreon, who has been referred to as the dirty old men of Greek poetry. The song was sung when they did the formal part of their society. They had their meeting and their dinner, and then the song was introduced. And because it was a difficult song to sing, it was introduced by a solo performer. He would sing the song, and then they would open up the general drinking and camaraderie. It was not, however, meant to be one of those songs that you see the tankards raised and they're swinging them in rhythm to the music. It was meant to be a very stately song, sung in more of an operatic voice than the common ballroom song, if you will. The words of the song were penned by one of the presidents of the society, Ralph Tomlinson, but there is no credit anywhere that is given to the composer of the music. So it is an anonymous melody that is there. I'm going to pull up the lyrics. I have a little extra time this morning, so I'm going to pull up the lyrics for you and just read some of them. I think they're quite interesting. To Anacreon in heaven, where he sat in full glee, a few sons of harmony sent a petition that he their inspirer and patron would be, when this answer arrived from the jolly old Grecian. Voice, fiddle, and flute no longer be mute. I'll lend you my name and inspire you to boot. And besides, I'll instruct you, like me, to entwine the myrtle of Venus with Bacchus's wine. It goes on to celebrate women and song and camaraderie amongst gentlemen. So it was by no means a derogatory connotation. And the song itself, the melody, was very ostentatious, if you will. We're going to move now from that song to give you the creation of our anthem. And to understand the importance of and the staying power of our national anthem, we've got to start from the beginning and all the periphery information that goes with it, and it actually goes before the song was written. And it started with a major and a flag maker. There's a unique timeline to the Star-Spangled Banner when it started, and it goes back to, although the actual song was penned in 1 year, it goes back 2 years before that when a flag maker, Miss Mary Pickersgill, a pretty renowned flag maker in Baltimore, was commissioned by the major of Fort McHenry. He was the commander of Fort McHenry in Baltimore, Maryland, Major George Armistead, to make a flag that would be seen across the harbor, big enough to be seen across the harbor. The earliest picture known is the one that you see here, when it was hanging at the Navy Yard in Boston from 1874. They've done much in recent years to preserve it, but it is still in pretty bad shape. In September of 1814, there was a British ship anchored in Baltimore Harbor near Fort McHenry, holding prisoners of war. There was one gentleman that was a prisoner, however, that was not a prisoner of war. He was non-military, and it was a pretty important thing for Baltimore to get him back. He was a doctor by the name of William Beans. So on September 7th, a gentleman named John Stuart Skinner, who was in charge of prisoner exchange, along with an American attorney, Francis Scott Key, boarded a sloop going out to the prisoner of war vessel to negotiate the exchange or the release of Dr. Beans. It was very important for them to get him back. And you'll see a picture up there of John Stuart Skinner along with Francis Scott Key from that time. They were on that ship for 5 days doing negotiations, and they were successful in their negotiations to get Dr. Beans released. On September 13th, the British agreed to release Dr. Beans, and so they put all 3 gentlemen back on their sloop, sent them back out into the harbor, but then held them under guard and would not let them go all the way back to Fort McHenry, because their intention was to bombard Fort McHenry, to capture it, and to get that flag down. They wanted that flag removed from the fort. Can you imagine sitting in that harbor, on that boat, watching the bombardment of Fort McHenry in horror? British forces fired 200-pound bombs and rockets at Fort McHenry for 24 hours as those gentlemen were under guard watching. And they wanted Pickersgill's flag gone. The fort surrendered. They wanted to claim a British victory there. The picture that you're seeing in the next slide, unfortunately, it's not there. There we go. Good. Is John Bauer's aquatint from that period. He painted it showing the rockets in the air. The caption notes that 1,500 to 1,800 shells were thrown in that 24-hour period. As we continue that timeline for the Star-Spangled Banner, September 14th now, through the clouds, the clearing light of dawn reveals that that flag is still standing. It's not straight up anymore, it's on an angle. And there are reports that it's on that angle because of the dead bodies that are underneath it that went to protect it, to keep it standing. Francis Scott Key witnesses this from the harbor and is inspired by the sight he sees in dawn's early light. Pulls a letter that he had in his pocket out and pens what he dubbed as the defense of Fort McHenry on the back of that letter. You'll see the letter here. It is presently in the Smithsonian. It's quite an impressive feat, just the inspiration of that gave for all of this. I'm going to read the words that he penned just as he penned them. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, or the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? On the shore dimly seen through the midst of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes, what is that which the breeze o'er the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, half conceals, half discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected, now shines in the stream. 'Tis the star-spangled banner, oh long may it wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. And where is it, that band that so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more? No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the star-spangled banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved home and the war's desolation. Blessed the victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just. And this be our motto, in God we trust. And the star-spangled banner in truth shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's quite a poignant piece that he wrote. It is uncertain in history, but assumed that John Skinner is the gentleman who released the poem, first in a handbill that was passed around, and then to the newspapers, where it was printed listing the tune of To Anacreon in Heaven. It's been stated that the dramatic and inspired creation of song forged in the heat of battle helped to achieve instant popularity. At the time of its release, there were several other songs in contention for patriotic favorites, if you will. Those, along with the Star-Spangled Banner, included God Save the King, from England, of course, the Marseillaise, which was the French Revolutionary anthem, Hail Columbia, My Country 'Tis of Thee, and Yankee Doodle Dandy. Now, Yankee Doodle Dandy, I must note, is kind of comical when you think about it. Yankee was a term that the British troops dubbed the Connecticut troops, the American troops, as kind of a slant to them. And a doodle, back then, was a fool. So here we have Connecticut fools, basically. But in our tenacity as Americans, we decided to take that slant and turn it around, and Yankee Doodle Dandy was something we proudly sung. And it is today Connecticut's state song. Eventually, God Save the King was kind of dropped from that because, you know, that was Britain's thing, and we didn't want that. And then there were the top five. And controversy abounded. Those top five would battle back and forth for years and years before the anthem was actually officially proclaimed an anthem. The Star-Spangled Banner, though, was popular, most popular, at rallies, political rallies, and so forth. People seemed to never tire of listening to it. And they would strike it up when someone suggested, can you play the national anthem? Can you play that Star-Spangled Banner song? The audience was calling it the national anthem long before the country recognized it as that. There were only a handful of northern songs that actually stayed in that patriotic venue in the favorites for patriotic songs, one of them, of course, being the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And despite the sore feelings of the South, the former Confederates, they turned to the Star-Spangled Banner as a familiar and comforting totem. 1880 saw Congress stall attempts to regulate the use of the flag for fear of them not being able to use it at political rallies. The Founding Fathers even bickered back and forth after breaking from British rule about the meaning of the flag and the Star-Spangled Banner, especially in the late 1890s when talks increased about officially naming a national anthem. In 1889, the businesses started to take advantage of the printing revolution that was happening. They distributed pamphlets, calling cards, so forth, with "Sing Our National Songs," and it included those top 5 songs, along with other patriotic tunes that were there. Even the school boards got involved when George Balch, who was a New York City School Board auditor, decided to push for a song that would, quote, stamp indelibly on the hearts of all present the real meaning and significance of the occasion, when at every school ceremony, to instill patriotism in students, he demanded the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner. And that started in 1896. Despite the push for patriotism, the choice of the national anthem still floundered amongst the top 5 contenders. The practice of performing the song at the opening day of baseball season was established in the mid-1890s, and that made the song more popular than anything. But the real thing that made a difference in the choice for this song was the military influence. They decided to put in a regulation of the song as a top choice, when in the late 1800s, Key's creation was chosen by the Secretary of the Navy, Benjamin Tracy, when he decided to initiate a standardization drive across the Navy. There was a general order that was issued, number 374 of 1889, which included the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner at morning ceremonies, the playing of Hail Columbia at evening ceremonies, and a decorum for facing the flag and saluting for all military personnel in the Navy. Throughout time, civil religion has replaced spiritual icons with the flag, the founding fathers, the Declaration of Independence, and national anthems have served as conduits for the crossover from religion to patriotism. In the early days of the Great Depression, when the federal government was overwhelmed, they manufactured patriotism with the choice of an anthem. It was noticed that Key's creation gained instant popularity and remained cherished by enough people over enough time to earn it the spot of what they quoted as the sonic embodiment of nationhood. Congress actually picked the design of the flag in 1777. They modified it in 1794. They approved the Great Seal in 1782. But the national anthem would wait some 117 years after Key penned the poem to become our national anthem. There were many renditions over the years. The tune of the Star-Spangled Banner has been attempted to change here and there. It always goes back to its original. Ragtime bands added their little riffs in it. Operatic singers did their number on it. Everybody taking it to suit their genre. Bluegrass, popular rock groups, even choral ensembles have adjusted the tempo, and the musicians throughout the ages have taken liberties with the song, with the melody. The words have always remained the same. Country music artists, which I found fascinating, are the most popular of people to sing the national anthem, even entering the popular music charts with their renditions in recent times. I think it was Faith Hill's version from one of the Super Bowls that went pretty far up the country music charts, played on the radio all the time. And of course, after huge events in our country, especially 9/11, that was a very, very popular thing to hear on the radio all the time. And while I did not add any pictures in this, because they were personally offensive to me, we all know about the present day controversy. The NFL abounds with controversy. The National Football League has more players in it that are going against the national anthem. You know, There are flags burned all the time. There is a lot of controversy presently, and I think it all stems from the fact that Francis Scott Key was a slave owner. Not only was he a slave owner, he retained his slaves till his death, left them to his wife in his will, for her to either free them or keep them in her service. He was noted to work on a couple of emancipations in his life, but that was not something that he did freely. And there is in the third stanza a note of slaves going to their graves, and it not really making that much of a difference. But I think we go back to that tenacity that Americans have, that take what maybe wasn't so good and turn it around and make it our thing. And in the end, with this song, patriotism wins. The patriotism across this country astounds me at times. I'm going to give you a quote from a book that I read about the national anthem by Mark Ferris, called The Star-Spangled Banner, The Unlikely Story of America's National Anthem. Somehow, throughout 2 centuries of change, the Star-Spangled Banner captivated the American spirit. But why? It is somewhat miraculous that an allegedly hard-to-sing, anachronistic composition born of a long-forgotten conflict that seems to glorify war and consists of unmemorable poetry remains the official anthem of the United States of America. In the end, after years of controversy, the Star-Spangled Banner was officially named the national anthem of the United States on March 3rd, 1931. And to end my presentation, I would like you all to rise for the singing of our national anthem. Please join me if you'd like. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you very much for your kindness.
All right, let's have another hand for Michele Miner. All right.